Johnny, is that everybody from the waiting room then that's now been admitted?
Yes, they're all inside now. Thank you.
Thank you. So by way of introduction, my name is Councilmember Anna Stoughton, and I am the newly minted chair of this advisory board. So I want to welcome everybody to the meeting right now and let those of you who were just let in from the public know that we have at least one more board member, Dr. Nikki Gonzalez, who's minutes away from joining. So we're going to wait until she has joined to formally convene the meeting and begin business. So we appreciate your patience from the outset here.
Get to 7, one more.
Well, thank you.
Senator Exum, good to see you. Hope you've had a good day. Just a heads up that we're just hanging out, giving it a tick here. We're expecting Dr. Gonzalez to join us just briefly here.
Sounds good. Good evening.
Thanks for joining, Senator.
Absolutely.
Tim, let's go ahead and call to order at 5:08 p.m. and start roll call and hope that as we make our way down that list, that gives Dr. Gonzalez time to join before we start actually getting into the business of the agenda.
Okay, sure. See here, Dr. Ishiwata is excused. We're expecting him a little bit later, possibly. Dr. Gonzalez, expecting her briefly. Senator Will.
Here.
Good evening. Representative Morrow is excused, is tied up at the Capitol. Senator Exum.
Good evening.
Good evening. Commissioner Chimino.
Present.
Councilmember Stout.
Present.
Director Red Horse is excused. Tim Mock here. Coordinator Stanton.
Here.
Good evening. And Director Wolf.
Good evening.
Great. And then I would just like to take a moment also to recognize Dr. Thomas Andrews with the Center for American West, who we expect will be representing that seat. We're just waiting for the formal appointment by the governor's office. So we certainly welcome. Do you go by Thomas or Tom?
I've always been a Thomas.
All right, very good. Well, appreciate that. And so look forward to you participating if you want to join us. And then Dr. Gonzalez, present?
Present. Good to see you all.
All right. Madam Chair, we have a quorum, 8 members present.
Thank you so much. All right, then we will get started going down our agenda this evening. So we called to order at 5:08. We completed the roll call. We have some new faces, so let's do brief introductions. While some of that is, I think, inherent in titles and names, it's still helpful to go around and know who we have on here. So let's start, Johnny, let's start in my top left corner. We'll start with you and then make our way across.
Thank you, Chair. Johnny Abad, I'm Executive Assistant for DNR and also this board's administrator.
Thank you. Stacy Coleman.
Hi, yes, Stacy Coleman. I'm the Assistant Director for Tribal Affairs for the DNR, as well as a staff member of the CGNAB. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim?
Good evening, everybody. Tim Mock, Deputy Director for the Department of Natural Resources and representing the Department of Natural Resources on this board.
Thank you. Senator Will.
Yes, thank you. Senator Perry Will, I represent Senate District 5 in the western slope of Colorado, which is Garfield, Pitkin, part of Eagle, Gunnison, Hinsdale, Montrose, and Delta County.
Thank you. Dr. Andrews.
Hi, I'm Thomas Andrews. I'm a professor of history and director of the Center of the American West at CU Boulder.
Thank you. Coordinator Stanton.
Jackie Stanton from the Department of Local Affairs. And I'm representing Dion Stroder, who's our Deputy Director.
Thank you. Commissioner Chimino.
Good evening. I'm Rich Chimino, currently a county commissioner in Grand County, and I think this might be my first meeting as vice chair. And looking forward to preparing Colorado to host next year's National Geographic Naming Conference here in 2025. So we'll be putting some work into that, but look forward to tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Wynn. Christine, we're going to give you a minute to unmute yourself and move on to Senator Exum.
Good evening, Senator Exum, Senate District 11, which is all of southeast Colorado Springs and part of southeast El Paso County.
Thank you. Dr. Gonzalez.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Nikki Gonzalez. I'm a professor of history at Regis University and also a member of the State Historians Council.
Thank you. Lauren Mercer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Assistant Attorney General Lauren Mercer. I am the board's attorney.
Thank you. Christine, it looks like you are now set.
I'm here along with John Carson.
Thank you. And Christine, I think we're getting feedback, so you'll need to make sure that you only have one audio stream from.
Yeah, I'm having problems.
Okay.
Okay. Got it.
Thank you. Tim Wolf.
Good afternoon, Tim Wolf, Director of the Colorado Tourism Office, part of or division of OEDIT, the Office of Economic Development and International Trade.
Thank you. I've got Chris Arend.
Sorry for that. I am Chris Aaron. I'm the Communications Director at the Department of Natural Resources.
Thank you. Apologies for the mispronunciation there.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Ed Perrinan. I'll be presenting later on. I'm from Fort Collins, member of the public.
Thank you. Jenny Runyon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Jenny Runyon on the research staff for the U.S. Board on Geographic Names at the U.S. Geological Survey back in Virginia. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Is it Mikkel Painter?
It's actually Michael Painter, but don't worry, everybody has trouble with it, with the spelling. Yeah, member of the public and one of the people that presented one of the names.
Thank you. And then Georgia.
Hi, sorry that I'm Georgia Garnsey. I don't know why I've showed up as just Georgia, and why my picture doesn't show up either. But there you go. I'm just a member of the public interested in the committee, and I'm from District 9 in Denver.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think that's everybody. Did I miss anyone? Sometimes when videos go on and off, it changes order and I skip over folks. All right. Well, thank you all for being present this evening. So we'll move now to reviewing and approving our August agenda. Are there any questions or concerns about the agenda, or is anybody requesting that any items be removed, modified, or added?
Madam Chair, motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Thank you. We have a motion from Tim Wolf. Do we have a second?
Rich Chimino, I second. I want to clarify the motion was to approve the agenda, not the minutes, correct? Director Wolf?
Correct, approving the agenda.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this motion? Given that clarification? Hearing none, all voting members in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, we have the agenda approved by unanimous vote. Now we'll move on to reviewing and approving the May summary, also commonly known as minutes. So this is pages 3 through 8 in our agenda. Is there any discussion on the May summary? Any additions or corrections to
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is fairly minor, but and during the meeting last month, I know that the approach we're going to take for used the words last month for Mount Evans, and granted that process was implemented while that geographic feature was called Mount Evans, but it's currently Mount Blue Sky, and I didn't know if we cared if the minutes reflected the wording up bottom of page 7 in our packet, conduct a series of hearings like we did for Mount Evans, or if we want to change it to Mount Blue Sky. I prefer the change to Mount Blue Sky. It was not the words used last month, but it might reflect more the current name of that geographic feature. However, if those corrections aren't really favored by this board, I'm not married to these corrections, but I offer that possible change to the minutes to wherever we reference Mount Evans, we change it to Mount Blue Sky. That's my suggested change.
Deputy Director Mock, that was quoting you in there. Do you recall, and I have to admit, I was not on that meeting, so do you recall how you referred to that and have preference for how that's listed in the summary?
No, I apologize, Madam Chair, that I don't necessarily recall, but I do agree with Commissioner Chimino that perhaps better reflects in going forward, just developing that muscle memory to accurately reflect Mount Blue Sky and the change there. So I'm good with that.
Are there any other comments about that or concerns? All right, then, are there any other comments, questions, or corrections to the summary, the May summary? Hearing none, in that case, I would entertain a motion to approve the summary with the change suggested by Commissioner Chimino on page 7. Is there anyone who's willing to make a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the table by Deputy Director Mock. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you. So we have a motion to approve the May summary with the correction from Mount Evans to Mount Blue Sky. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the May summary with that correction, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes unanimously and the May summary is approved. We'll move now to quick board member updates and announcements. Are there any, acknowledging that we are running about 10 minutes behind, are there any board member updates or announcements that anyone wants to share at this point? Deputy Director Mock?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just real quick, I'll make this brief. We are expecting Governor Polis to appoint and reappoint members to this board. We've kind of reached that expiration date. We had a couple that will not be re-upping moving forward, including Dr. Way and Director Morgan with the Colorado Geological Survey, as well as Mr. Benitez. So I just want to express my appreciation on behalf of DNR and the state for their service to this committee. We'll certainly miss them. And hopefully maybe we can communicate some collective thanks to them going forward here. But again, just a big shout out for certainly Dr. Way was with us since the start, a tremendous contributor, and we really will miss them all. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other board member updates or announcements? Okay, hearing none, then we'll continue down the agenda and we'll move to agenda item 6. And this is our updates from Stacy Coleman and Dr. Gonzalez about Bainsdraw, Poison Lake to Golden Valley and Mount Hughes. And those are USBGN numbers 5961, 6017, and 5937 respectively. So I'll turn it over to the two of you to tag team this item.
Stacy Coleman here, and Chair Stout, just respectfully, in addition to updates on those 3 proposals, I also have additional updates on the proposals that are set on the agenda to vote today, just to make sure that everybody knows where we are on that outreach piece with the tribes, as well as a brief update on Kit Carson Mountain too, because I had a couple of meetings in July. So if I can also give updates on those, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely. I think we would welcome all of the above.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, Director Gonzalez, I mean, I can pause for a minute if you have anything that you'd specifically like to provide, other than I can go ahead and do the Bainsdraw, Poison Lake, and Mount Hughes ones.
Thank you, Stacy. No, I don't have updates actually for this meeting. I didn't give it's my fault, but I didn't give History Colorado enough time, so I'll have those updates for the next meeting.
Wonderful, that sounds good. And thank you so much for being our lead and point of contact there with History Colorado on these. We appreciate it. So I don't have any really further detailed updates either on Bainsdraw, Poison Lake to Golden Valley, and Mount Hughes proposals. They were formally introduced as a reminder for review at our last CGNAB meeting in May. We haven't received any specific feedback from either the Ute Mountain Ute or the Southern Ute Indian tribes. But if we're going by sort of an 120-day response timeline clock for any formal outreach, we would need official comments submitted by September 16th. So there's still time, and we'll continue to do our outreach on that. Quickly moving to Square Top Creek, Plunge Point, and Plunge Mesa and Spring Creek Reservoir, which are all on the agenda today. I simply wanted to let everybody know that, those proposals have, been out there for beyond 120 days now for some time. That we've completed, the tribal outreach both at the federal level that the USBGN does with all 574 federally recognized tribes, as well as tribal outreach through this particular board to the Ute Mountain Ute and Southern Ute. Neither the Ute Mountain Ute nor Southern Ute have responded, and we've certainly done several different methods. So it seems like at this time, based on past efforts, outreach efforts, and no response, that these proposals are probably ready for final review and vote. And lastly, here with Kit Carson Mountain, as a reminder to folks, especially, from the public that are joining us today, there are 4 different proposals that are out there and pending before the USBGN. Not all of these have been introduced for formal review before the CGNAB yet, but we have initiated sort of early outreach in January of this year to the Ute Mountain Ute and Southern Ute on those proposals. I did get a chance to meet with both TIPO offices for the Southern Ute and Ute Mountain Ute in July. And what we've sort of worked out and agreed on right now between the 2 tribes is that they'd like to better understand if there is a traditional name for this particular geographic feature that was used originally back in the day before maybe, formally changed through USBGN processes. If there is, then there might be a preference to support that. If there isn't, then the Ute Mountain Ute tribe would prefer to do an elder naming, sort of prayer naming ceremony at the geographic site that brings together the different tribes to see if a name comes forth through that process. And if that's not possible, then at least the Ute Mountain Ute tribe would sort of prefer to keep name changes, just names the way they are, whether they're good or bad, if they can't go through that process proposal. It's unclear to me whether the Southern Ute feels the same way, though. It was clear that they did support a name change of some sort, but want to work through this collaboratively with the Ute Mountain Ute tribe together. So our next steps are really me trying to get a staff call together with USBGN, and for us to sort of talk with both of the tribes to see if there is a traditional name that we can find either in the USGS records or through our assistance with History Colorado and anyone else that we can kind of think of to first determine that. And if that can't be determined, then we'll work with both Saguache County as well as the town of Crestone to see if they're interested in hosting this particular ceremony and process piece that the tribes are interested in doing. So it does mean that more time will be needed for this, but we are moving forward as quickly as possible. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any other updates specific to these proposals from anybody but Stacy Coleman or Dr. Gonzalez for the three? Commissioner Chimino.
I'm sorry, you want just the three? I have a comment about Kit Carson, if maybe that'll be later.
That, Tim, do you have a preference for when we discuss?
I think, we don't have it formally on the agenda beyond the updates there. So I think taking the input now is just fine.
Perfect.
Yeah, it wasn't really, Madam Chair, if it's okay, it wasn't really input on any particular proposal. What Ms. Coleman talked about the steps for researching, and I wanted to volunteer my help, unless it's already been done, Stacy. I would volunteer to go to the Saguache County Clerk and Recorder and try to do various searches with recordings in Saguache County to see if those latitude, longitude, if the features had been referenced with a different name. It's kind of hard sometimes to get recordings in counties. It might be there, but you can't find it unless you search the right way. So I'll try to do my best and see if some searches can show any other historical names to try to round out our research on this feature.
That would be wonderful, Vice Chair. I appreciate it. I maybe want to give a moment to see if Ms. Runyon from the USBGN has anything to add to that in her experience with sort of working with the counties and county recorders. So I'll pause there. Jenny?
Thank you, Stacy. To be honest, no. I mean, we do a fair amount of research, reach out to county governments, ask their recommendations, and we try and typically include a comment if you have any historical records. We would appreciate you checking. To be honest, it's very rare that we get any that kind of feedback. We don't have the luxury of going to the county office to do research. So yes, anything that could be done locally would be wonderful. I will add that we don't have any other records at the USBGN level. We just have whatever's in the GNIS database entry for variant names. And our place name books are just going to be just the 2 or 3 we have on Colorado. And there's nothing in there to indicate any other names for what is now Kit Carson Mountain. So sorry, nothing at the federal level. And I did get an update late last week from the Forest Service basically saying the same thing, that they have no other records on the history of that mountain. So pretty much punting it back to you all at the state and certainly the county if that's possible. So yeah, thanks for letting us provide an update.
Thank you. Deputy Director Mock.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And Vice Chair Chimino, while you're at it, appreciate you volunteering for that. I know that Clear Creek County kind of stood out as having a county archivist, but you might just want to check to see if they've got somebody over there, because that's also can be a wealth of resource as well. So just leave you with that. Thanks.
Will do.
Thank you. All right. I think you have your charge at this point, Vice Chair Chimino. Anything else regarding any of those updates?
Chair, if I may say, Vice Chair Chimino, I can also put you in touch with the county reps that we've been in touch with so far too, if that might help, just to keep everything kind of coordinated together. So I can send that to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to keep the local helpers in the loop. So very much appreciated.
Thank you all. I think that brings us then to our updates from Ms. Runyon from the USPGN.
Well, thank you. Thank you again. I didn't have much else to add, really. Just while I'm thinking about it, many of you know Jesse Nett with the Forest Service, Region 2, or I should say formerly with the Forest Service. He left his position at the Forest Service 2 weeks ago now and has jumped ship over here to the U.S. Geological Survey, now working in the GIS office. So Forest Service loss, our gain. So Allison Bruner is Jesse's replacement at the Forest Service in Region 2. I don't know if she received the invitation for this meeting, but I would definitely encourage you all to include Ms. Bruner in future meetings. Yes, Gresham said Jesse, yes. If you don't have her contact, I can send that along to Johnny perhaps for the next meeting. And then, of course, the other thing is we are preparing for the rapidly approaching 2024 Geographic Names Authorities Annual Conference, COGNA. Commissioner Chimino mentioned next year in Colorado, but before that, we get to go to Missouri, be in Columbia, middle week of September, and we are preparing for the BGN agenda. We typically hold our monthly meeting during that conference. As you well know from last year, some of you attended and saw the vote on Mount Blue Sky. So we'll have a meeting this year. I don't think we have any Colorado names on this year's docket that I can recall. And then we've been asked to do a couple of presentations of, they call them state training sessions. So we're going to talk about some introduction to the BGN process. There's always new faces every year that like to hear. So those of you who've been around a while, you can go get another cup of coffee and you've heard it all before, but we'll be giving an update. And we are in the process of really tightening up our proposal process. And we have an online proposal form, or should I say online? It's a PDF that's posted online, but to be honest, we accept just about any proposal that comes in the door. As long as it doesn't violate a policy, we accept it, we process it, we do all the outreach. There's no guarantee it'll be approved, of course, but to be honest, we're getting a lot of very weak, ill-researched, poorly prepared proposals. And we have our new executive secretary. I think you all met Shelley Zahnizer at the last meeting. And she is motivated to really tighten up the process, to put a lot more burden on proponents to do a lot of the legwork, to do research, to do, as Commissioner Chimino said, maybe reach out to the county archivists and county records offices, maybe get that local support before they come to the BGN with a proposal. If it's a native name, work with the tribes up front before you submit the proposal. So we'll have a lot of what we're calling sort of gatekeeping documents before someone gets to the proposal form. So anyone who's planning on attending in September will get to see firsthand our first draft of the revised proposal form. And we're also going to be updating our principles, policies, and procedures to reflect some of this new approach. So stand by. Maybe next meeting we'll have a lot more to share on some of this changes. Again, putting more burden on proponents to develop stronger proposals. So hopefully it'll help all of us. So I think that's all I have. You know me, I'll pipe in at the end with something else, I'm sure. Thank you all. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. And that's really exciting news because it really will help expedite this process on our end and hopefully lead to more expeditious resolutions to some of these requests.
Thank you. Yeah, I will say part of that will be to invite the state names authorities to offer your feedback on what could be improved. So it's not just us telling you, we'd like your feedback too. So there'll be an opportunity either at or after the Cogna conference to offer your insight as to what would make your processes easier. Absolutely. So thank you. So I didn't mean to interrupt there. I'm sorry.
That's
Bad
right.
habit of doing that. Thank you.
That's wonderful. And this actually does feel like an appropriate time to give a brief update, Johnny, if you'd like to. We have a good-sized delegation coming from this board to attend that conference. So Johnny, do you want to give an update on who is attending?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So it would be Deputy Director Tim Mock, myself, Council Member Stout, and Commissioner Chimino will be attending the Cogna conference in September.
Great, great. So Rich had a wonderful time last year. He wanted to come back for more. That's great. Good to know. See you all soon. That's great. Thank you.
Looking forward to it. All right. Well, now we're going to get into the meat of our agenda, where we're potentially making some decisions this evening. So we're going to move now to our agenda item number 8. This is final consideration in the USBGN case 5468 concerning an unnamed feature to Square Top Creek. For those of you following along with our packet, these are packet pages 9 through 20. So I will turn this over to staff to give us an update on where we're at, and then we'll open it up for discussion when we're ready for discussion, and then potentially for formal action. And Tim, would this be you, Deputy Director Mock, to give the?
I'm happy to give a rundown unless Ms. Coleman had anything specific to this to add.
Nothing specific to add, than already given the updates there, but happy to answer any questions that folks may have on that particular outreach process that we did with the tribes.
Otherwise, Madam Chair, this begins on page 9 here of everybody's packet. Basically, it's a proposal to apply the new associative name Square Top Creek to a 1.4 mile long unnamed tributary of Duck Creek in Click Creek County. Stream flows out of Square Top Lakes down the slope of Square Top Mountain and into Duck Lake within the Pike and San Isabel National Forests. The Square Top Mountain name was made official by the BGN in 1933, citing the shape of the mountain and evidence of existing local use. It does occur fully within Forest Service lands. And we've had some local outreach on this as well as the Forest Service. And so that's kind of where we're at right now with this. I think we've got Michael Painter, the proponent of this, on here. So Madam Chair, when you're ready, I would perhaps see if the proponent has anything else to add.
I think this is perfect timing for that. Michael Painter, would you like to say any words on this specifically?
Only to say that I actually am an employee of the Pike National Forest, and we've had a few projects in that area, and it's really hard to have a project when you don't have a name for the feature that you're working in. So that's what prompted me to submit the suggested name of Square Top Creek.
Thank you. Is there any discussion from board members?
Madam Chair, if I may, I would just say that, as a resident of Click Creek County, I'm very familiar with Square Top Mountain and the lakes up there. Just a little bit of a fun fact, the Division of Colorado Parks and Wildlife have been restocking the lakes up there with the native cutthroat trout. And so they've made 2 trips in the last year up there with some 5-inch fingerlings that are doing quite well. And so I think, as the proponent mentioned here, that section is unnamed. To me, it makes sense. Just familiar with the area and the relation to those lakes. So I'd be supportive of this.
Wonderful. Any other comments from board members? Hearing none, I think we're ready to entertain a motion for formal action.
Madam Chair, I move that we recommend to the governor to name this unnamed creek Square Top Creek as proposed.
Thank you. We have a motion on the table by Vice Chair Chimino to recommend to the governor that we rename the unnamed creek Square Top Creek as proposed. Is there a second to that motion?
A quick clarification, please, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, I said it wrong. There's several steps. I move that we recommend to the governor that he recommend to the US BGN that they rename this to Square Top Creek. That's the right authority to make the last call on this.
Wonderful. And I'm going to simply ask for a motion to the amended motion without restating the restatement of the motion. Is there a second for that? And that's just I'm trusting in the fact that we're recording this, and I know Johnny will get it all down perfectly. I think we had a second then from Senator Will.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Any discussion on the motion? All right, we are prepared to vote. Do we need to do this by roll call, or can we do these by acclamation?
Acclamation is fine.
Yes, agreed.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. All right, the motion passes unanimously, and we will pass a recommendation on to the governor to pass a recommendation on to the USBGN. All right, wonderful. It feels nice to move some of these forward and check them off the list. So let's continue then down our agenda to agenda item number 9. This is final consideration in the USBGN cases 5638 and 5639. This is on our packet pages 21 through 46 to name unnamed features Plunge Point and Plunge Mesa. This one I actually have one of two updates on this one, and that is that the Mesa County Commissioners they're supportive of this, but have not taken formal action unless formal action is required by this board, but are generally supportive of this, and none of the three would be opposed to this renaming. I did reach out, I talked to John Gale with the BLM, and he didn't believe that there was a position from the BLM that would be forthcoming. So that's my updates. Are there any other updates or any other discussion about this agenda item number 9? Hearing none, I think that, or I saw you unmuted, Vice Chair Chimino.
Just ready to make a motion.
Ready for a motion? Wonderful, thanks. Thanks for teeing up. All right, then I think I'm prepared to entertain a motion on this one.
As someone who frequently visits Mesa County, I am pleased to move that we recommend to the governor, to recommend to the USBGN, to ask that this unnamed feature be named Plunge Mesa and Plunge Point as proposed.
And one quick clarification on the motion, it's two separate features. So correct that there's two separate features that are being considered in this one motion. All right, do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Go ahead.
Okay, I think we've got competing seconds, but I think Senator Exum just barely beat you to the chase, Dr. Gonzalez. So we have a second to that motion. Any discussion on this motion? All right, all in favor of recommending to the governor that he recommend to the USBGN that we name these two unnamed features, Plunge Point and Plunge Mesa, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously, and we will pass that recommendation along to the governor. We are moving through quickly, thank you all. Okay, we're now at agenda item number 10, another final consideration in USBGN case 6159 to name an unnamed feature, Spring Creek Reservoir. For those following along, this is our packet, pages 47 to 58. Is there any discussion on this item?
I have a few points if this is the time for me to discuss. Good, okay. As recommended last time, I've spoken with the city, Heather Young there, and there is some issues going on with the HOA on the north side that have continued, and they're trying to get those resolved. And what I propose is that until those issues are resolved with this particular body of water, I would like to withdraw my proposal at this time, if that's possible, and bring it back to the committee at a later time when those issues are resolved.
From a procedural and I guess, Mr. And I want to make sure that it was.
It's
Dr.
Perrin, yeah.
Dr. Perrin, thank you.
Yeah.
So from a procedural standpoint, is this something that you anticipate bringing back in relatively short order, or is this something that you think may require substantial time and effort?
I think it's going to be a little bit of time for that to happen, for these issues to get resolved. So and I don't want to waste the committee's time, the board's time. But I think it's probably best if I withdraw it rather than revisit it at this point in time.
Okay. And then from a procedural standpoint, and this may be a question for staff or for Ms. Mercer, in the event of a withdrawal, does that, as opposed to tabling this, even if it's for an extended period of time, how much does this create additional waiting time and having to go through new processes versus for a withdrawal and a resubmission versus postponement? And I think you've got something, Deputy Director Monk.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, let me interrupt for a second. And I think I want to call a friend here, Jenny Runyon, and see if this has any similarity to what we've done in the past with, we could keep, if the proponent withdraws this essentially kind of goes away, and I think we kind of lose some of the queue and some of the work. But in the past, what we've done is we've at the proponent's concurrence, we've been able to swap out another name for this one and not have to kind of go through the entire process from the USBGN and from a CGNAB, but then in our recommendation, we just kind of swap out the name and move it forward if we do get, this is assuming that we're able to, in the previous episode, we were able to get pretty good concurrence by not only the proponent, but any other stakeholders that were involved. So Ms. Runyon, I don't know if you've got a comment or a preference on how we might approach this.
Well, thank you. It's not really a preference at the USBGN level. And we're happy to keep it on the back burner, so to speak, indefinitely. Obviously, if it gets to be, 2, 3, 4 years and nothing has happened, then obviously at some point, if there's clearly no local support, then perhaps withdrawing it would make sense. It doesn't bother us to keep a case around for a while longer. Presuming the CGNAB just simply would not put it on an agenda until you hear from Dr. Perrin that it's ready to move forward. He's got some action from the city or the county. It's really up to him as the proponent. In fact, only the proponent can withdraw a proposal. We can't do it on his behalf. CGNAB can't do it. It really has to be up to the proponent to decide if he really feels like this is going to take considerable amount of time and you don't want to have this sit pending, but it doesn't bother us in the slightest at the federal level. And in fact, if I could sort of correct what you said there, Director Mock, a little bit, if a new name comes forward that does in fact start the clock over, then we would in fact need a new case brief, a new case summary, a new review list notice, new county, federal, tribal outreach. That's almost like a brand new proposal. But if it's a new name, then we would in fact need a new case brief, a new case summary, a new review list notice, new county, federal, tribal outreach. That's almost like a brand new proposal. But if it's a new name, then we would in fact need a new case brief, a new if the sense is that the name Spring Creek Reservoir is ultimately what is going to be put forward, it's just going to take a while longer, then that would not need to be review listed. Now, conceivably in a case like this where we have the city on record as saying no at this point to the name, at some point you have a whole new city board, perhaps, new members, there's been elections, then maybe we'd want to, recontact the county to get a fresh perspective, if it gets to be another year or two, perhaps. But it's totally up to the proponent, Dr. Perrinan. It's totally up to you how you'd like to manage this. If you want to just have a sit on it indefinitely, we won't close it. But if you'd rather, that's fine too.
I'm happy. I was doing that in deference to the committee itself, so I didn't want to. But the other piece of it is, I know the city did say they did not like the idea of reservoir. They didn't feel it was large enough to be a reservoir, so that name may change. And that's from the staff. So the engineers, the staff doesn't city council, but we could leave it up there, and who knows, we may get lucky. I'm happy to leave it up there, table it, and if we have to, we can resubmit. That might be the safest of all bets. And that way, if it comes up, it is, and if it's not, we'll go ahead and take care of it at that time. And I appreciate your time and your thoughts on this.
Are there any thoughts from the board, given Dr. Perrinan's position, to let this continue to be pending, but we'll wait for, we won't reconsider it. We won't put this back on an agenda until we hear from the proponent that it's time to revisit it, and or that the desire to withdraw is now time.
I think it sounds more efficient to keep it. Yes, Madam Chair. Let's keep it on the list. Is my suggestion.
I concur with that.
Yeah, agreed. Because you don't want to lose the history of it. So you've got, again, the work has already been done, just like Director Mock said. So I would agree with.
Agreed.
Wonderful. Then go ahead.
I just said agreed.
Wonderful. So question then for Ms. Mercer, do we need a motion to table this since it's on for final consideration?
I think that would be appropriate. Just a motion to, well, at the board's pleasure, to table consideration until Dr. Perrinan reaches back out.
All right, is anybody prepared to make such a motion?
Yeah, in regards to USBGN case 6159, naming an unnamed feature to Spring Creek Reservoir, I move that we table this case until further input from the proponent, Mr. Perronin, and we take it up then.
Wonderful. So we have a motion in this case number 6159 to table this case until further input is received by the proponent. Is there any, do we have a second? Sorry, before I jump ahead to discussion on the motion, do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you. We have a second from Vice Chair Chimino. Any discussion on that motion? All right, then we'll call a vote. All in favor, please say aye. All in favor of the motion to table this case until further input from the proponent, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. All right, that motion passes unanimously, and we will wait to hear then from you, Dr. Perrinan. Thank you so much for being on here and for your participation with this.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, that wraps up our cases for consideration this evening. So we are on agenda item number 11. This is our process document that we need to review and approve. And this is pages 59 to 68 of our packet, but we're specifically discussing page 65, the 60-day to 120-day tribal review period. So is this you, Deputy Director Mock, or is this who's leading this agenda item?
Oh, Chair Stout, I can lead this real quick in terms of a summary, and Assistant Attorney General Mercer may have some to add to it too. Just to give a quick recap here, at the March CGNAB meeting, I had provided an update on the presentation that Director Redhorse and I had given to the Ute Mountain Ute Tribal Council. That was just generally about CGNAB updates and to check in to make sure that our process in terms of tribal outreach is working effectively. One piece of feedback for consideration that tribal leadership gave was to request a 120-day response time for official outreach and formal comments from tribes. This is really reflecting the previous sort of time frame for responses that we have right now in our guidance document for proposals that is at 60 days. During our March meeting, the CGNAB staff said that they would work with Assistant Attorney General Mercer here on draft language to sort of present for review and a vote. We finally have that ready here for you all today. So that can be found on actually page 65 of the information packet. And I'm going to get there with you. It's highlighted in yellow there, and it's actually in Appendix A. So I'll give everybody a moment to scroll down there and to get to that point. And this is really talking about our community outreach process there. Okay.
And if I recall correctly, one of our challenges before was when we've discussed this in the past, we didn't have the quorum for a vote on this at one point. Was that correct?
Yeah, that sounds correct. And we didn't have the full language too in terms of a proposal. I mean, it's a simple change there from 60 to 120, but we do want to make sure that everybody's clear on that. So you'll see here, all it does, like I said, is change that from 60 days to 120 days, which is bolded in the information packet, for response time for comments on a name change proposal once it's formally introduced by the board. So we would just be changing that to 120 days. The response deadline only applies to official requests for input that the board solicits during the formal outreach process there. It doesn't apply to public comment. The board will still receive and consider any public comment prior to a final vote on the proposal. So it's really just strictly for this narrow purpose. It would apply to all entities. It's not specific to just tribal governments. Staff felt that would be easier for us to track, and also why not give everybody more time at this point. So right now this is the language that's up for consideration here, and I'll just pause for a minute to let Assistant Attorney General Mercer provide any additional thoughts or advice on this in terms of any sort of vote here. So.
Thank you, Assistant Director Coleman. I don't really have much to add. I would welcome, if anyone has questions, I'm happy to help answer. But I think the cleanest path forward is, if folks are in support of the language that is in the board packet, it would just be a motion to approve that language. But if there is a desire for changes, we can workshop that language here as well.
All right, I'll turn it over then to the advisory board for discussion.
I just had one question. It says 120 days. So say that they get back to us within 90 or 60. Do we have to wait the 120 or we go ahead and make the decision? So 120 sets the bench for a decision on the name?
Yeah. Really, it's if all the entities that we're reaching out to, which is more than just tribal governments, it's local governments, any other entities that may have, historical research that they're doing for us within that we want official sort of comment on. If we receive all that information, say within 90 days, there's no reason why the board can't move forward with a vote at that point in time. It's really just to allow sort of a back end to this.
Okay. And then just to clarify, say we've identified 2 tribes and we did it within 60 days, and then all of a sudden another tribe comes forward after we've already, decided to go ahead and move forward, and they jump into change the dynamics of that, then how would we go about it? So that's why I'm kind of asking about the 120.
Deputy Director Mock. Oh, did you have something directly?
Well, actually, let me, thanks, Madam Chair. Let me try to respond to it this way. is that I think this change actually fundamentally doesn't really change the way we are actually currently working. So what we've been trying to do is introduce a set of proposals every so often, or at every meeting or every other meeting. And it's taking us, 120 days, 2 meetings or so, to work through these issues. So fundamentally, this doesn't set us back in terms of some of that timeline of the programming. And then obviously some kind of seem a little bit easier. And I think we can make those calls on the fly if that happens. But I think what you're seeing is we're able to work through some of these proposals, like the last 2 that we approved today, fairly swiftly. And so that allows us to kind of introduce them, do the work, consider some others, and then sort of when the 120 days roll around, we've probably surpassed that by the time these get calendared again due to the current workload in process.
Are there other questions or thoughts given either the language or the conversation that's been had? Hearing none, are we in a position where the board is comfortable with a motion at this point? I see Vice Chair Chimino shaking his head affirmatively. And Senator Will. All right, then I'm prepared to entertain a motion in that case.
Motion to approve the amendments to the bylaws as presented under Appendix A on page 7 of the bylaws, page 65 of our packet.
All right, we have a motion by Deputy Director Mock to approve the amendments to the bylaws as they appear in Appendix A on page 7 of the bylaws and page 65 of our packet. Is there a second to that motion?
Madam Chair, if I may, I just wanted to clarify, this is not actually the bylaws, it's the guidance document. There's a different process for amending the bylaws, so I just wanted to clarify that.
I amend my motion to clarify the process document. Thank you, Ms. Mercer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Never have a meeting without an attorney to keep your motions on track, right? All right, do we have a second to the amended motion?
I'll second.
I'm going to give that one to Dr. Gonzalez.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you. We have a motion to approve the amendments to the guidance document by Deputy Director Mock and a second by Dr. Gonzalez. Is there any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any, thank you. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously, and the amendment to the guidance doc as it appears in Appendix A, which is page 7 of that document and page 65 of our packet, is hereby approved. And that means that we've gotten through our agenda pretty expeditiously, and that brings us to our public comment portion of the meeting. Is there anyone on this evening who wishes to make public comment?
Ms. Stout? This is John
Yes, sir.
Carson. Just a quick question. How long will it be till your minutes are available? Because we've only got about half of the discussion here with the weather down here.
Oh, I'll turn that over to Johnny to answer timeline in terms of when our summary document will be available.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is Karen Hughes on the line. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sitting here with my husband, and we apologize. We totally spaced out coming to the meeting. We hate to ask you to go back over case number 5937, but Mount Hughes, I hope, was discussed today.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes. Let me get a response really quickly to the previous question about when the minutes or the summary document will be available. Let me have that be answered first, and then we'll come back to your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So normally what happens is that the board, it becomes part of a board's packet. So it would be in the packet for our next meeting. the summary would be, and then the board approves it at that meeting. So
Okay.
it would be by the next meeting.
Okay, so you don't put it out like next week or?
Beforehand, right? But John, what we do is we put this meeting on our website, the video, and you can re-watch it and re-listen to it.
Okay, thank you, because I don't know if the weather down here in London is bad tonight or what. We only got about half of what y'all said. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then, so Ms. Hughes, to essentially just tag on to that. So we did not take formal action on Mount Hughes this evening. We did get an update from Stacy Coleman at the top of the meeting. So when this is posted, you can go back and watch the update for that, since we didn't take formal action. So there's, from a time standpoint here, rather than rehashing the update for the entire meeting, since it's recorded and we can have you go back and just listen to exactly what the board received, I would encourage you to get that information there. Is there anyone else from the public who has joined us this evening who wishes to make a comment this evening? Hearing no one, I'll close the public comment portion of our meeting, and we will now decide when our next meeting will be. And I will turn to staff. Considering the fact that we have the conference coming up and staff has a whole lot going on, when would you like us to look at scheduling our next meeting? Do we have sort of a month in mind? Are we looking at October?
I was gonna say maybe early October.
Okay.
Or early middle October.
Okay. Do we have any immediate conflicts from board members for a board meeting in early to mid-October?
The week of October 13th through 19th, I'm at another conference.
Okay. And another question that I wanted to ask is whether we wanted to do an in-person meeting this year, as we did last year at about the August meeting, if I recall correctly. Is that something the board would like to try to do, to bring everybody together in person? Of course, there would still be a virtual option for public participation, as well as board members who are unable to come in person. Is that something the board would like to entertain?
Madam
Yes,
Chair,
please.
yes, we can certainly arrange for something here at 1313 Sherman in Denver. We've got capabilities then to broadcast that as well as conduct a remote hybrid type of meeting.
Great. Are we comfortable then moving forward, trying to schedule this as an in-person meeting? I wanted to bring that up before we start choosing dates, because it certainly impacts whether people are able to travel, and it's easier to join a meeting from another conference if it's virtual, but certainly if we're trying to be in person, then that makes that a very off-limits week. So that in that case, would we be looking at perhaps October 10th-ish? Is that what we
Madam
would?
Chair, I think on our end with staff, that week is a tough week. If we can avoid that, we can revisit that if we fail on some other options. But I think we're looking now at either the very first week or that third week, the 21st.
Okay. Do we want to look then at is Thursday the best day for everyone? That's been, I think, what we've been doing relatively consistently.
Yeah, if that's the case. Oh, Miss Abad, might need your help there. Because I think for us, it might be actually I'm looking at Wednesday, October 2nd or the 23rd as better dates for us.
The 23rd won't work for me. I've got a number of council commitments that day, but the 2nd I could make work. Does that work for the rest of the board? Oh, hang on. So, that would not be one that I could make it to in person. Would we want to look at perhaps a Friday to help people with travel from the far flung regions of our state, like, you know, Grand Junction and Western Colorado?
Friday works for me.
October 4th?
October 4th, or what is the week of the 7th out? Would October 11th work for staff, or is that the whole week is bad?
I think that whole week is bad.
October 4th for everyone?
That the 4th, I have a Wall Farm field trip on the 4th, so that would work.
Okay. And we could look at the 25th.
That worked for me.
Okay. Does that work for everybody else? I think we're still pretty in the clear weather-wise for I-70 travel for those of us who are coming that route.
We would have to send a proxy from the CTO office. We're international during that entire week.
Okay, would that be less than ideal, or would that still work for your office?
I think it works fine for our office, especially when you get the majority of this group together, because it's just so difficult to make it work for everybody, especially in the fall. A lot of things going on in October. So
yeah.
If you can get most of them, go ahead and I'll send somebody in my place.
Okay, thank you for that flexibility. Unless somebody jumps in with opposition to that, we're looking then at the 25th. And since this is going to be in person, and do we want to move this up a little? I think we did this around the lunch hour last time and provided food. So do we want to look at noon to 2 on that date?
Well, if you're going to include food, I'm going to come early. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just going to miss getting to see everybody, because I don't remember having an in person, and I've been on this board for 2 years. So I think it's great that you guys are doing this.
It's really important to me as a person who lives on the Western Slope, because I think every opportunity we have to come together, I think it's great for our working relationships, and for being inclusive of all members of this organization, both with the virtual and the in-person option. So something that in my year-long chairmanship, I will try to make happen, at least this time, if not. Landed on 12 to 2 with food included. Food that won't be quite enough to draw Tim back from wherever he's going to be abroad, but enough that it'll nourish the rest of us. All right, we'll get that on calendars. Ms. Abad will get the calendar hold out to everyone in coming days. Is there any other business to come before this board this evening before we adjourn, 30 minutes early? Hearing none. It is 6:14 p.m. and the Colorado Geographic Naming Advisory Board meeting of August 26, 2024 is hereby adjourned. Thank you all for your participation, and we'll see you guys in person in October.
Thank you.
Thank you all.